guys good? Good. Good evening. We'll call the April 13th Planning Commission meeting to order. Rise. Tom Wester will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Clerk, please call to roll.
Verba,
Here.
Greenberg.
Here.
Hicks. Chappaka.
Here.
Siriano.
Here.
Tamarkin.
Here.
Wester.
Here.
Thank you. Next, we have additions and corrections to the agenda. We have none, so we'll move on. Next, we'll do approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which was March 23rd, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Greenberg, a second by Ms. Burba. Any comments? Discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Verba,
Yes.
Chappaka.
Yes.
Siriano.
Yes.
Tamarkin.
Yes.
Wester.
Yes.
Next, we'll swear in the applicants. I'll turn it over to our city attorney, Mr. Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are now at the public hearing portion of the meeting. The public hearing will operate as follows. Administrative staff will make a presentation or comment on the application. The applicant or their representative may then make a presentation or comment on the application. Public comment will then be open for 3 minutes allowed per speaker. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. Speakers must complete a speaker slip and come to the podium and state their name. The applicant will then be given 10 minutes to comment. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. If there is more than one application pending for a particular address, the presentation on each application may be consolidated and presented as one. At this time, will persons wishing to present testimony this evening please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, state I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. We'll now move into the approval part of the meeting. I'm going to read the first application. We have V00122022 to consider a variance application to vary Chapter 1167.17B of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Gahanna for shed installation for property located at 641 Gahanna Highlands Drive, parcel ID number 025-009290, current zoning SF3, CA, and Rome Rosa are the applicants. We'll turn it over to Mr. Cohn for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this property is located on the northwest side of the city, just east of 270 here. So this variance is to allow a shed to be placed in the side yard. This property is zoned SF3 for single family. That code section states that accessory structures are to be located to the rear of the dwelling. This shed will be to the side of the house here. It's pretty common that we've seen these quite often. The shed is existing. It's worth noting that this application is a result of a code enforcement violation stemming back from, I believe, September. This shed is 7x7, just 49 square feet. It'll be on the south side of the house and about 13 feet from the side property line. Site plan gives you a better idea of where this will be. It'll be geared towards the back corner of that house there, just on the side. This is the picture taken by code enforcement back in September when the violation was started. I want to make note of a decent amount of landscaping here on the side of the house that screens the shed a little bit from the public right-of-way. Staff does support the variance. As I mentioned, these are very common that these come up. We do anticipate that the the zoning code rewrite to allow these types of accessory uses in the side yard in the near future. It's also worth noting that the minimum setback here on the side is 7.5 feet. So hypothetically, the applicant could have a home addition in the same location without a variance. Just want to make note of that and also clarify the little bit of screening there helps provide screen it from public view. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. At this point, we'll turn it over. Would the applicant like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Peter Rydell. I'm an attorney. I'm representing the owner, Chad Alexander, and his wife, Romarosa Alexander. Mr. Alexander is not able to be here tonight. Unfortunately, he was taken ill. We have submitted to each member of the board, hopefully, has a copy of the bare bones of our application. As staff indicated, this is a prefab shed. It fits on the side of the home. The color picture that they presented to you does not indicate an unpleasant or unattractive appearance. It seems to blend in with the neighborhood. There is trees and bushes, and we plan to put in some more to hide it from the road. It's a sun-cast shed. I think it's 7 by 10. It's not excessive in size. It'll be used to store lawn equipment. There'll be no dangerous chemicals, ordnance, or other dangerous materials stored in the shed. Part of the reason that the shed has to be on the side is the back part of the property slopes downward into the water-flowing ravine between the subdivision, and it's unsuitable to put it on the back. We would request that the board approve the variance to place it on the side, and we will strive to make it as attractive as possible. I would also note that the neighbors were duly notified in accordance with code, and unless I see someone here objecting, we don't see anybody objecting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting, turn it over to the commission. Any questions from the commission?
No questions for me.
Seeing none, clerk, were there any comments sent in from the public?
No, sir.
No comments from the public? We will close this portion of the meeting and ask, is there a motion for approval?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve V 0012-2022 for a variance application.
I have a motion for approval by Mr. Greenberg. Do I have a second?
Second, Suriano.
Second by Mr. Suriano. Any additional comments from the commission? Seeing none, clerk, please call to roll.
Greenberg,
Yes.
Siriano,
Yes.
Chapaca,
Yes.
Tamarkin,
Yes.
Wester,
Yes.
Burba.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Gentlemen, ladies.
Moving on to the next application, we have V 0013-2022 to consider a variance application to vary Chapter 1141-09 of the codified ordinance of the City of Gahanna for a garage installation for property located at 1076 Glendale Court, parcel ID number 025-011827, current zoning at SF2, Terry Cullen, applicant. We'll turn it over to Mr. Cohn for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is located on the west side of the property towards near Hanna Park. This variance is to allow a garage to exceed the allowable area. This property is zoned SF2. That code requires that garages shall not exceed 1/3 of the total floor area of the dwelling. So this house is just over 2,600 square feet, has an existing 400 square foot attached garage. So based on that dwelling area, they are permitted 885 square feet. What they are proposing is to construct a 550 square foot detached garage. That'll bring their total up to 950 square feet. So just slightly over that maximum allowed garage area. Looking on the site plan, the garage will just be on the southwest corner of the house here, towards the end of the driveway. It will meet all minimum setbacks. Applicant provided a couple renderings. Design review is not part of this application, but it is always helpful to see what we are reviewing. With staff comments, we do support the variance. The applicant noted that the garage is to accommodate additional family members that will be living at the dwelling. So there will be some additional vehicles that they will need to store. Does not appear to negatively impact any of the neighboring properties. And as I noted before, the area only exceeds the maximum by 65 square feet, or about 7% of that requirement. So with that, I'll turn back for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Turn it over now. Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, my name is.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Terry Collin. I'm the owner of CTM Construction 6 LLC. My address is 210 Cedar Street, Lot 143, Pataskla, Ohio. I'm available for comments or questions.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting and turn it over to the commission. Mr. Greenberg.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a question. I walk by the house all the time. It's in my neighborhood. So the front of the garage is going to be brick and
Yes,
siding on the,
it has to match the house because of the HOA, obviously. So, yes,
okay. And the siding on the side matches the
it'll match the house as well.
house as well. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Detached, Mr. Cohen, a detached garage, is that required to have a design review?
No, it does not require design review in residential properties.
Got it, okay. My question was actually the same as Mr. Greenberg, so, thank you.
No further questions.
Quick question I have as chair here. If this garage was 65 foot smaller, could they build it without a variance?
Yes, they could.
Okay.
It meets all other zoning requirements, so if it was a little less in size, it would be able to just go through with the permit and without the variance, yes.
Okay. Mr. Greenberg.
I got a follow-up question. I used to be president of the HOA in the neighborhood. So are you going to go through the architectural review board there and get an approval?
Yeah, we've already got the approval. Actually, I used to be secretary for 6 years.
Okay.
On the HOA, so.
Aye. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. No more comments? I'll ask, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve item V-0013-2022.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Suriano, a second by Ms. Burba. Any discussion? Just one comment I have. Also live in the neighborhood, do a lot of walking through the neighborhood. There are a number of detached garages through the neighborhood, including one at the house next door to me, and seems appropriate. With that, clerk, please call the roll.
Siriano,
Yes.
Burba,
Yes.
Chappaqua,
Yes.
Tamarkin,
Yes.
Wester,
Yes.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very
so
much. Moving on to the next application, we have V-00142022 to consider a variance application to vary the Chapter 1143.08B of the codified ordinance of the City of Gahanna for a shed installation for property located at 1185 Venetian Way, parcel ID number 025-005264, current zoning SF3, Rob Shuri, applicant. Mr. Cohn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this variance is to allow a shed to be within the minimum rear yard setback. This site is zoned SF3. That zoning district requires a minimum 10-foot rear setback for any unattached accessory structures. What the applicant's proposing is to have a 160 square foot shed 7 feet from the property line. So it'll be there's only a 3 feet difference there. So on the site plan, have the shed towards the rear of the property. It's noted, just want to note that this is in a 20-foot drainage easement, which I'll talk about briefly in a moment. But again, this is a 16 by 10 shed, it'll be just 7 feet from the rear property line. It does meet the 7.5-foot minimum requirement for the side yard setback. This is existing. This application is also the result of a code enforcement violation stemming from March of last year. This is the picture from that time period, just showing what the shed looks like in that area. The violation was because the shed was installed without permit. The applicant noted that the shed would be placed over an AEP electrical line if it was placed at that 10-foot setback line, which the applicant states is why they had to move a little closer to that rear setback. The Division of Engineering did review the application. They noted that they do not support the variance. They stated that the shed would obstruct the maintenance and operation of the stormwater drainage way within the easement, which is against code in the Public Service Code. Due to those potential drainage issues and obstruction of maintenance, staff also does not support the variance. Again, these have come up from time to time where engineering has non-applications and drainage issues. I think there's been consistent issues in this area, which is why they have concerns. So with that, I will turn it back for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. We'll turn it over to, would the applicant like to comment?
Yeah, my name's Rob Shirey, and I'm at 1185 Venetian Way. We applied for the application for a permit. We did attempt to receive a permit for this in May of 2020. In late August, we received a letter stating that the application had been denied, which was after the shed had been built. In that amount of time, we had a city representative who was out checking on someone else who had complained about our raised garden beds, stating that they were not in compliance, or I don't know. They were complaining about raised garden beds, and that city engineer at that time, or the city representative at that time, stated that the city wasn't handing out or wasn't issuing permits because of COVID. We were right in the height of everything that was happening with COVID. He said, if it were me, I would go ahead and build it and take pictures along the way. If there are any questions, the engineers can ask questions and you can reference the pictures later, which is what we did. And then started this whole process in September of 2020, which has led us to here. But we've been attempting to get a happy medium on all fronts. The shed's already built. We're only 3 feet outside of the drainage. The shed is on pillars, so there is waterway underneath the entire shed all the way. And I have checked with our neighbor to our east, who has lived in the house for 36 years, I believe, 37 years, somewhere in that range. There's never been maintenance to any of this drainage area in the back part of our property the entire time she's lived there. So my question with engineering is how much maintenance happens with these. They had even, in my original application, had responded and said, with an asterisk, that there is, that if they were to approve the permit, there would be an understanding that the homeowner would be responsible for the removal or movement of the shed if maintenance needed to happen. I was fine with that. So I'm open for any questions, or I can answer any questions you guys may have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment? And have we received any written communications?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll close the public portion of the meeting here and open it up for questions from the committee. Mr. Shapaka.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So clarification.
Yep.
These are up on little concrete piers or something?
Concrete piers, yep. There are
So it is
9 concrete
elevated.
piers that's sitting on top of. The lowest side is about 5 inches off the ground. The highest side is about 14 inches off
So
the
any,
ground.
if something did kind of blow through there, run through there, it's going to go right underneath
It would
it?
go right underneath it.
Is it made out of pressure-treated lumber? What's this thing made
Yes,
of?
pressure-treated lumber, for sure. And there's pressure-treated siding and cedar as well to match the home.
So is there like a portable ramp that goes up into this that you can move out of the way in case we get that
No, we just,
200-year storm?
anything we need to get up. We have 5 kids, so we have lots of children's toys and backyard toys and such, and that's really what and lawn equipment is what the shed is designed for, so.
And you do understand, and I just wanted to point out and get on record that if it is required to be moved for easement, it's going to be on your dime.
Yep, I get it, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Good. Mr. Greenberg?
Well, my question, I guess, for Zach is, can that be written into the approval? That if there's maintenance required of the stormway, that the homeowner agrees to move the shed?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe that's already conditioned as part of the permit and placing anything in an easement, but the planning commission can also make that condition of approval, yes.
I mean, we would need some notice. We would need a little bit of notice, not, some sort of notice on needing to move it.
So I have another follow-up question to that is I see where the location is.
Yeah.
Was there no other place on the property where the shed could be placed that would not interfere with stormwater drainage?
No, it's quote unquote all the way along the back of the property, which we learned after this whole process happened. There's no, I don't understand, when they brought it up, I didn't understand what they were talking about. It's a yard that has a little bit of a slope, and there's no stormwater, there's no ravine, there's no gravel, there's nothing that would indicate that it's a stormwater runoff area. So it was a surprise to me when that came up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think there was a note in the staff's presentation around if it were to be placed, I guess where it should, it would be over an electric line. Is that, so if it were out of the easement, where's the line, I guess, is my question.
So if you're looking at the site plan up at the top, there's an existing deck. So just in front of where the dashed line is where the electric line comes in from the back left corner, or the top left corner. It comes down the property line, which would be south down the property line, and then cuts east into the property and then up to the house. And it literally, if we bolted it to 10 feet, it was going to be right, the pillars would sit right where the electric line was, and I wasn't okay with messing with that. And when we pushed it back and it lined up with our neighbor's fence line, which in my head I thought was, oh, okay, if they've put their fence back this far, that's probably fine too. It lines up, it looks all nice, it looks like it's all one line, a property line breaking. And behind that, there are a number of the electric box distribution boxes there. There's 2 or 3 Time Warner or WOW boxes back there as well. Some fully grown trees that are back there too. So I don't see it as being what everyone would expect as a drainage ditch. There's no drainage ditch. It's just a yard that slopes down to the side. We don't have running water. We don't have pooling water or any issues with that, so.
Okay. Do we still have stipulations from the city around, this question for Mr. Cohen, around size of shed? If I remember, it's like 12 by 12.
No, nothing to my knowledge. There's there's maximum lot coverage area, but no stipulation about shed size.
Okay. And when you all built it, there's typically, if I remember correctly, a holes inspection for foundations. Do you know what those foundations are set at?
36 inches, or I'm sorry, 48 inches. We used augers. We used the 48-inch augers, and they're set on 4x4 posts.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Barbara?
So you are willing to move it if we would so decide?
If the city needed to come through and do something, absolutely. If there was some reason that needed to be cleaned, or if they were going to run a drainage tile or something through there, absolutely. If that's the case, if it needed to be done, we could have it moved. I've looked into having it moved a number of times, and for it to move 3 feet and the cost involved with having it moved, I knew it finding an alternative, which is when I went to zoning, and zoning said get a variance. So that's when I learned of this whole process and figured out that this is the next step in the process. So there is a way to move it, for sure. And I have two companies that I have reached out to. I have quotes for. I have them lined up that they could come out in June if I needed them to move it, if this were to fail for some reason. It's just very expensive.
Okay.
I have one follow-up. This variance typically is this a utility easement? What's the easement? It's drainage, stormwater?
Drainage easement.
And we are, does code allow structures within the easement? Meaning, so right now it's at 7 feet. If they were move it to 10 feet, which is typical per code, but is that what we're asking? Does it really need to be out of the easement altogether?
So this variance is only for the rear yard setback. This is not a variance to be located in the easement. It would meet the zoning code requirement if it is 10 feet from the rear property line. I know that engineering has been cracking down on structures and fences within easements because they've been noticing a lot of drainage issues around the city. So they've been cracking down on that. So if this does get passed and approved, engineering would probably just have that same stipulation that it would have to be removed if there's any maintenance required. But they have just been, in their comment, they didn't say that it cannot be in the easement. They just say that there's potential issues and they do not support the variance.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more comments from the commission, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve V 00142022.
I have a motion by Ms. Burba. Do I have a second?
Second, Chewbacca.
I have a second by Mr. Shapaka. Comments from the commission? Mr. Greenberg?
So my comment is, do we need to add language into this motion that says the property owner will remove the shed if the city requests maintenance in the easement?
Mr. Roth?
Can we change it from remove to move?
Move, okay.
Get rid of it or just relocate it?
Relocate.
One, I don't think it is necessary because it's implicit in the easement that if we need to get in there for drainage purposes, for public purposes, that it would have to be moved. However, if you want to make that a condition of this, yes, I think it should be done at the time of the motion. So we're already past that because we have a second on the motion. So I don't know how you want to handle that. If you want to make it a condition that say it's granted with the understanding the resident will pay to move the storage shed if necessary for maintenance of the drainage easement, I think we need to handle the motion and the second that was made first and then I guess make another motion with that condition.
So one option would be to vote no on what was just approved, or should we just remake the motion?
I think if we withdraw the motion that was made
Okay.
and then
remake
make a new motion, get another second, then vote.
Mr. Chair, I move to withdraw the approval for V 00142022.
And do I have a second for removal?
Second, Chewbacca.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So now we will remake the motion.
Do I have to do roll call? Excuse
Do
me.
a roll call on the issue of withdrawing the previous
Got
motion
it.
and second.
Okay, who did the second? I'm sorry.
Mr. Shapaka?
Thank you, sir. Okay, Burba?
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, yes.
This is
I'm
just to
sorry.
withdraw the
withdraw.
prior
Yes, to
motion.
withdraw.
Shapaka?
Yes.
Right, what I should say.
Siriano?
Yes.
Tamarkin?
Yes.
Wester?
Yes.
Greenberg?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there another motion?
We're writing it.
Just a second. Mr. Chair, I move to approve V 0014-2022 with the stipulation that should this, the city request that the shed or shed on, what's that say?
Be moved
Oh, be moved from
for maintenance.
what is it?
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna read it real quick.
Okay.
This is my reading here. So, we're, make a motion to approve V 0015-2022 with the stipulation that should the city request that the shed be moved for maintenance of the drainage area, the resident and subsequent residences will relocate the shed at their expense.
Second.
Chewbacca.
Second by Mr. Šepaka. I got a motion by Ms. Burba and Mr. Tamarkin, and a second by Mr. Šepaka. Any comments?
I'm going to be in support of this motion, given the rear yard setback variance that we're asking for is within, 3 feet. Appreciate staff's review and recommendation for non-approval, but knowing that the structure is on a foundation of 48 inches and off of grade, I think that there's going to be minimal impediments to stormwater and drainage if it's allowed to flow underneath the shed. And given the stipulation that it be removed or be moved if required to access the easement. So I'll be in support.
Seeing no other comments, clerk, please call the roll.
Burba,
Yes.
Chappaka,
Yes.
Siriano,
Yes.
Tamarkin,
Yes.
Wester,
Abstain.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time and understand, what was done and why it had to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too. Moving on to the next application, we have V-0015-2022 to consider a variance application to vary Chapter 1171-03 of the codified ordinance of the City of Gahanna for a fence installation for property located at 543 Tall Oaks Drive, parcel ID number 025-009817, current zoning PUD, Matteo Traberti, applicant. Before I turn it over to Mr. Cohn, Mr. Traberti did make contact with the staff and is unable to make it here tonight. So we're going to go through it. Mr. Cohn will make a presentation. If we have questions or comments for the applicant, we will defer this or have the ability to defer this to a future meeting. Mr. Cohn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this property is abutting Tall Oaks Drive and McCutcheon Road. So this is a variance to allow a 6-foot privacy fence in the front yard. This property is zoned PUD. In any residential zoning district, privacy fences are prohibited in front yards. So there is a unique circumstance here because this parcel does contain double frontage, one on the north side and one on the south side. The fence will be, and typically what is considered the rear yard, which is along McCutcheon. It will be replacing a 4-foot fence, and be moving a little closer to the sidewalk up towards the right-of-way at 12.5 feet from the right-of-way line. So looking at the site plan, the existing fence, the existing 4-foot fence is the blue line here across the back of the property. It also goes along the side property lines up to the house. The orange line is the new fence that's being proposed. Again, that's a 6-foot privacy. And that'll be 12.5 feet from the right-of-way line. And it's worth noting that the right-of-way does extend actually past the other side of the sidewalk. So the applicant provided a couple handy diagrams here. I want to point out that towards the back of the property, towards McCutcheon, the yard does slope up quite a bit towards the sidewalk. And what they did here is provide a point of view from their eyesight on the back of the yard, showing the existing fence line at 4 feet here. And this is showing that if they put the new fence here at 6 feet at that same location, that 6-foot fence would be where that orange line is here in the middle. So they want to give you an idea of that, pedestrians walking by, they can still see into the yard, and cars driving by can still see into the yard. So if they move it up a little bit to that 12.5-foot setback from the right-of-way, that'll be up on that slope a little bit towards the sidewalk. So if they put a 4-foot fence there, that would be the line of sight at that spot. And then what they're proposing is that 6-foot spot, 6-foot height, which would provide significant privacy screening for the family there. Staff supports the variance. Again, sorry for the typo there. That's not a shed. That is a fence to provide more privacy for the family. Again, there's not many lots around the city that have double frontage like this. There's a row of properties that border McCutcheon and Tall Oaks Drive that have double frontage. Almost all those houses do have fences in what is the backyard, so it is common there. And the zoning code just lacks any regulation for these types of lots, so they don't come up often. But when they do, it's just the code doesn't have any useful regulation for that. And as mentioned, it's worth noting that several neighbors do have fences within that same line that the new fence will be. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay. Clerk, do we have any questions from the public?
No, sir.
And is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. Turn it over for questions from the committee. Mr. Shapaka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick one. So is the 6-foot portion just on the sides, it's on to the south there or facing Oak? Or is it supposed to be all the fence?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Is it all of the fence, or is it just a portion he was showing the diagrams that face the street?
Yeah, it would be pretty much all the fence. Given that it borders Tall Oaks and McCutcheon, basically the entire lot is a front yard.
So who is responsible for cutting that grass on that side and maintaining the trees?
That would be the property owner's
That is still
responsibility.
the property owner?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Greenberg.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, Zach. So the fence right now, you can see through.
Right.
Are we talking about a privacy fence where the slats are going to be like right up against each other and totally screen out any view inside of the backyard?
From my understanding, yes.
Okay, and it
Yeah.
looks like directly across the street is a fence just like it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and there are also fences similar that neighbor this property that have a privacy fence.
I have a quick question. Part of the variance we're looking is to go to from a 4-foot to a 6-foot fence.
Yes, 6 foot from 4 to 6 foot, and for a privacy fence in the front yard.
So when you show the overhead view, that certainly a lot of the neighbors' fences go all the way that far back. Are the
They
other
do.
neighbors' fences 6 foot tall? Will this be similar to their fence, or will this be 2
Well,
foot taller than the adjoining fences?
Yeah, I drove by. Some of them are 6-foot fences, so those are existing non-conforming. They can replace those fences as they want, but they can replace it in the same location. But if they add any new fence locations or extend it towards the street, they would need to come through for the same variance.
But this fence will not be out of character with the adjoining fences?
No, looking at this site plan, that blue line along the bottom of the screen, that's in line with one of the fences just 2 properties down, so.
And some of those fences, though, are 6 foot tall?
Correct.
Okay. Seeing no other questions from the commission, I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve variance application number V00152022.
I have a motion by Mr. Shapaka. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wester. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Shapaka,
Yes.
Wester,
Yes.
Tamarkin,
Yes.
Burba,
Yes.
Greenberg,
Yes.
Siriano.
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on, we have a design review, DR-0006-2022, to consider a design review application for a site plan, landscaping, and building design for property located at 555 YMCA Place, parcel ID 025-012051, current zoning SO, YMCA picnic shelter, Donald Weaver applicant. Mr. Cowan.
Thank you again. So this this design review is for a 760 square foot picnic shelter. This property is zoned suburban office. In the code, basically any type of structure in a commercial zone property requires a design review, which is why we're here. The code lacks specific language regarding these types of structures. Basically says that materials that they should be constructed of materials that will enhance the development in a positive manner. So given that, the shelter will be constructed using wood columns and trim painted drift gray with shingles that would be estate gray. It's worth noting that the land use plan also designates this property as civic/institutional and does contain recommendations for pedestrian-friendly facilities here. And so looking on the site plan, we have Johnstown Road towards the bottom corner of the screen here. YMCA is about in the center of the properties. Just north of that is where the shed will be located. It'll be about 115 feet from the north and the side property line. And to give you a better idea of the landscaping there in this area, I included a satellite image. The shed will be just inside that tree line here, towards the north end of the property. The applicant provided an additional satellite or bird's eye view showing that the shed or the picnic shelter will be right in between all these trees. There will be no trees removed in this process. It'll just be tucked in behind that tree line here. Looking at the renderings, again, it will just be essentially an all gray standard picnic shelter. With the design review criteria, states that any structures have to be compatible with existing structures, that contributes to the improvement of the design of the district and contributes to the economic and community vitality of the district, and that it maintains, protects, and enhances physical surroundings. So given that criteria, staff recommends approval. We believe that it meets that criteria and all the other code requirements for setbacks. It's also worth noting that it will not be visible from the public street. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Would the applicant like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Donald Weaver, 620 Reindeer Lane, Gahanna. The Y approached me a while back about doing this picnic shelter. I think for the most part, it's to help handle all the kids that come during the summertime. Neil, you might even address that.
Yeah, we have a small day camp there.
Please just state your name for the record.
My name's Neil Eichenstar. I work for the YMCA.
Okay.
We have a small day camp there, and it would be finally some structure for shade and things like that for the kids to have an area that they can go under.
Okay.
And the community can use it to kick people off the property, so the neighbors can also come and use it.
Very good.
Placement of the shelter, we went out and measured, made sure we weren't interfering with any trees. The only vegetation right there now is just scrub brush. Tough to walk through, but you can get through it. But so we wouldn't be disturbing anything in terms of landscaping. I think it would help the overload for all the kids in the Y. If any of you are Y members, the summer program starts, the Y fills up quite a bit. So I think it would help alleviate that problem that they experience. I think it's a good idea for the Y. It's a picnic shelter. It's pretty basic.
Very good. Anyone from the public like to comment? Seeing none. Any communication from the public?
No, sir.
Hearing none. We'll close the public portion of the meeting and turn it over to the committee for questions. Mr. Greenberg.
Just curious about capacity, how many folks and picnic tables and stuff you're going to have in that
We figured
shelter?
that we would probably have 36, 6 tables, 6 kids each table.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Verba?
You're not going to do any landscaping here?
Except for mowing. And the kids might do some landscaping when they run the grass off.
Did you say you're going to have a restroom in there too?
No,
No?
we'll access the building for the restroom.
That's what they do now.
It's what?
That's what they do now. All the kids come in, they have a,
And we actually
counselors
have,
bring all the kids in and line them up, tell them this is your bathroom break, use it or lose it.
we also have, OSU has moved out, so that's our space now. So camp is it's gonna center out of there for restroom use and things like that.
Okay. So you're going to mow all the grass around? I mean, you should be doing some kind of landscaping, shouldn't you? I mean, like, are you going to have grass around the,
It'll be grass, yeah.
there's
It'll be
grass?
yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is there a concrete pad underneath this?
Yes.
So the other question, can you expand on how the public can use it? Is there a fence around this property?
No, there's a walkway that also accesses through the property that was put in, so they can walk through there anytime.
Sounds like a good idea. The table's going to be there 24/7,
Yes,
12 months out of the year. They're just going to be sitting there.
sure.
How's this monitored when you're not in there throughout the day or at nighttime?
It's the way it is right now. It's just that, I mean, the neighbors can all look through there and everything. There's no real.
Are you providing any kind of lighting at all?
We hadn't thought of that, no.
Because I'm thinking if you have light, they will come. If you
Yeah.
don't have light, then
They will still come.
they'll still come. As nice of a amenity that is, that the only reservation I have is it being accessible to the public and, you know, during the winter months. I mean, you expect to use it during the winter months at all?
We will probably, that would be when we would, I mean, we could store the tables, what we do
Yeah.
now with the exterior tables.
I figure you guys will learn. If it gets bad, you'll take the tables out, kind of a deal. No other questions, Mr. Chair?
Good. All right, seeing no more comments, we'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval for DR 0006, 2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Wester. Do I have a second?
Second, Soriano.
Second by Mr. Soriano. Any comments?
I'm in support. Seems pretty straightforward. Materials are pretty consistent with what I would expect for a picnic structure.
Good. Clerk, please call the roll.
Wester,
Yes.
Siriano,
Yes.
Verba,
Yes.
Greenberg,
Yes.
Chappaka,
Yes.
Tamarkin.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to our last application of the evening, we have DR-0007-2022 to consider a design review application for a sign for the property located at 1379 Johnstown Road, parcel ID 025-009559, current zoning NC, High Bank Distillery. Tim Kaskuski is the applicant. Hopefully I got that right. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. So this property is located on the corner of Morse and Route 62. So this is for the High Bank Distillery coming in. They were in a few months ago for design review and approved. I believe they're under construction right now in the interior. So this application is to amend the existing master sign plan for the property. And to give you an idea of a couple highlights of what the existing master sign plan is, it's specific to this tenant space only. At this location, it's a maximum of 50 square foot primary wall sign, which is on the east elevation. They're allowed a 28 square foot secondary wall sign on the south elevation. And the master sign plan also requires that all the signs have to be have to have scalloped corners with routed edges. All the graphics and the borders have to be redwood characters and painted chroma gold. And it also requires a certain background colors to be used, and that includes black, green, purple, blue, or maroon. And so what they're proposing with this is, in order to allow their typical high bank sign, they're proposing a 91.25 square foot primary wall sign. That's the one that will be exceeding the allowable sign area. Now, on the secondary wall sign on the south end, that's 22.5 square feet. That meets the allowable graphic area size. Both signs will not meet the design requirements of the MSP. What they're proposing is to have 1-inch black acrylic font and squared borders rather than scalloped. The background will be transparent. They'll show the existing white vertical siding on the building, and it will be illuminated with gooseneck lighting that is already existing. So on the site plan, High Bank, that was on the south end of the property here on this tenant space. The primary wall is on the east side here, and the secondary, again, is on the south. So I want to give you an idea of what the existing master sign plan requires. The plan that we have is very low quality, so this is the best example I could find. But it shows these scalloped corners. This would have routed edges. Again, it can only be certain background colors, and the font and the border would have to be gold. So just imagine this size, or this sign, and a little bigger to accommodate, like a 50 square foot sign to accommodate the location that they're in. This is what they're proposing at the location. This would be the primary wall sign. Again, it's about 91.25 square feet, and it shows the existing gooseneck lighting above the sign. And on the south end is the secondary wall. This one meets the allowable graphic area size. This one is at 22.5 square feet, and it's very similar to the primary wall sign. Looking at the master sign plan criteria, basically just says that it has to establish a common theme with compatible colors, scale, and size. It has to be approved by planning commission prior to the issuance of a sign permit, and that any changes to an approved MSP has to be approved by planning commission, which is why we are here today. Staff recommends approval. The existing MSP was approved 26 years ago. It's probably quite outdated, so these signs will probably bring a little modern flair to the property. And also with the proposed size, that 91 square foot sign, it is proportionate to the wall size, or the wall area. It is a very large space to put the sign on, so it doesn't look out of place. It's also worth noting that the existing MSP requirements will still apply to all the other tenants. This application is only to allow the High Bank distillery signs. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Would the applicant like to speak? Please state your name, address, and relationship to this project.
Tim Kaskuski. I'm the architect representing High Bank Distillery. My address is 159 East Livingston, Columbus, Ohio. So I think I think the staff's report is pretty accurate to what we're trying to accomplish. A couple points that I want to draw attention to were this sign and the renderings have not changed since our original design review, and I think that was slightly my mistake to maybe not include this process in that first application. That outside of it, the size area and the background, we're really just using the building, so it's a very kind of transparent sign, and we're not making bold, flashy backlit or anything, and it's consistent with their brand standard in Grandview. The proportions are also derived from their standard graphics, and that's kind of how we got to where we were at, fitting it on the size and scale of that primary wall there, and using the same lighting that's in place. So those are really the points that I want to drive home, and happy to answer any questions about anything that may come up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the public? Any communications? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, turn it over to the committee for questions. Questions? No questions. we'll close this portion of the meeting. I ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move DR-0007-2022 to consider a design review application be approved.
Second, Suriano.
We have a motion for approval with a second. And any comments? Mr. Szpaka.
Yeah, I think I'm in support of this. The character for that end of the building it's all appropriate. The monochrome colors, and like you said, the branding, I think is very appropriate for this building, and the beams that are out there, it just complements everything. I'm kind of happy. It looks like a big sign over the front door, but how they handled it with the frame and making it, like you said, see-through, the transparency of it, again, complements it. They did a good job. Thank you.
I'll also be in support. I think the nature of that, I guess this would be the broadside of a barn, maybe. I think the sign's proportional to the face that it's on relative to the increased size. So, and echo Mr. Szpaka's comment. So I think it does warrant the additional square footage, both in proportion to the opening below and the side of the elevation. So, in support.
Mr. Greenberg.
I'm also in support as someone who will be driving by it probably on a regular basis. It looks nice and attractive. I do have a question for Zach. The MSP is 26 years old for that area, and it obviously is a little bit out of date. So how does that get corrected, fixed, or is it just storefront by storefront?
That would be up to the property owner to come through and apply for a new master sign plan.
Okay.
One comment I have, sign is proportional for the building, I think bigger than the Donato sign, so Donato's also has a barn size on their end of the property. The Donato sign is a little smaller, but bigger than what the master sign plan allows. Don't know if that was approved or not approved 26 years ago. And the sign is smaller than the sign that is on the barn across the street. There's a very large sign on the front of their building, much larger than this. I'm also a big believer that signs regulations should be loose enough so that a tenant can use their colors, their logos to be on their sign. Master sign plan should not determine color, font, because that is not fair to the tenants. You would never ask McDonald's to do Gahanna blue arches, they gotta be gold. So, we've talked about this before, and I'm a big believer that tenants should be able to use their logos and their fonts. With that, clerk, please call the roll.
Greenberg,
Yes.
Suriano,
Yes.
Verba,
Yes.
Szpaka,
Yes.
Tamarkin,
Yes,
Wester.
Yes.
motion carries. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing the restaurant open, which I hear is not that far in the future.
Yeah, hopefully May.
Hopefully May.
Get the sign up next week, potentially.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Appreciate your time.
That concludes the application portion of the meeting. We'll go to unfinished business. We have none. New business. We have none. Official reports. City Attorney.
Nothing to report at this time, Mr. Chair.
Planning Department.
I'll make a note. As far as future applications, I believe Fine Line is next in line for the next hearing. Michael Blackford will be heading that one up. I want to let you all know that tomorrow is my last day with the city. I'll be moving towards Akron for personal reasons to move a little closer to family. So I just want to let you all, I may be involved in a part-time capacity to be determined how much, I don't know. I may be reviewing some planning commission applications still. But I will not be presenting in front of you anymore. That'll be all Michael. But just want to let you all know that it's been a pleasure working with you all. It'll be difficult to work with any other planning commissions because you guys have set the standard high. So appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure working with you, and good luck to you in your future endeavors. Any comments from city council? CIC chair is not here. Chair, one comment I have, this is our first meeting, regularly scheduled meeting, I guess. Our workshop was broadcast, but this meeting is broadcast on the Gahanna YouTube channel. This is our first one to be broadcast there, and all future planning commission meetings will be broadcast on the Gahanna YouTube channel. We have no correspondence and actions. Any comments from the committee? Mr. Greenberg?
Just echo congratulations to Zach, and we'll miss you, and good luck in your future endeavors.
Yes, thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Zach. We've enjoyed having you.
Hope you stay in Akron a little longer than you stayed here.
Me too.
Mr. Wester?
Again, congrats and good wishes for you, Zach. It's been a pleasure working with you. I do have one comment, that tonight we approved some things where the surveys do not show all the easements. They are mortgage surveys. There are some surveys, and I've seen them, that'll show the drainage lines when a subdivision is platted, where the swales are, where the drainage is. They will also call out all the utilities. If you go back and look at a couple of pictures that were presented for us tonight, there's notes on that survey that says they do not show all the easements. Essentially, a property owner can be working with incomplete information. I know one property owner that built some beautiful flower beds, and he has a swamp in his backyard now. You know? He can't figure out why. If you drive through a subdivision, you will notice the slight swale between the lots. You know, some civil engineer put a lot of thought into that. That's the only comments I have. And I wholeheartedly supported the civil, our city engineer on his comments there.
Thank you very much. With that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.